Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, it was buckets and buckets and buckets of guts on display for the Red Raiders in an OT thriller with the Longhorns from Jones Stadium. We'll get to that most recent top 25 win for Joey McGuire. We'll also get to the All Marbles team and ask the question as to whether or not the quarterback conversation is on the shelf and for what period of time. And of course, we return to the vaunted Locked On Texas Tech Equine grading scale. Coming up next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Everything runs through Lubbock.
Thanks for joining us again on Locked On Texas Tech, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And would like to thank our friends at LinkedIn Jobs for bringing you this episode. LinkedIn Jobs, the official college football sponsor across the Locked On Podcast College Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Right now, that's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Guns are still up, horns are still down at last report, and will remain that way for a while, Chris. 37-34 in OT. It was wild. It was woolly. It was everything you wanted in a West Texas slugfest at Jones Stadium, including the right result for the good guys. And it kind of felt like, in a way, some demons exercised to a degree as the pressure maybe around the program, for whatever it's worth early in the season, is kind of lifting, I think, with each one of these top 25 wins, man. How'd you take it in on the field?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that one felt good, man. That one felt good for a lot of people. And there was a point where I wasn't sure you were going to be able to pull it off. But
well, of course.
I mean, all the fourth downs and like going for it on your own end of the field early in the half and being down 2 scores. I think that this is right. I think this is the first time since 1976 that you trailed against Texas at the half and were able to come back and win. So it's been a long, long time in that sort of scenario like we saw. And you were down 10 points at the half and ended up being down 14 points, 31-17 at one point. But, man, this was just like one of those games, though, much like Houston, where you just kind of were the last team swinging and you just kept making plays and kept making it interesting. And this is what you're capable of when you don't turn the ball over and you play clean football. That part can't be overstated. I think some of the last drive by Texas and that 125-yard pass is frustrating. There was some of the hurried up, kind of on fourth down when you ran the same play near the goal line that you could kind of have issue with. But overall, man, 6 for 8 on fourth down, and Sark leaves a loser, and GP leaves a loser. I mean, that's I'll take that. I'll take that, man, any day of the week, man. And Crystal Connie leaves a loser too.
Yeah, I was going to say killing 2 birds with 1 stone, but killing 3 turd sandwiches with 1 stone, whatever way you want to wrap it up. So many things to enjoy about it, and I enjoy another day where it's a BYOG day, bring your own guts day, and the Red Raiders had bucket after bucket after bucket in all phases, man. Offensively, defensively, which we've come to expect, and special teams. You were really clicking and playing some complimentary football whenever it mattered the most. And the biggest standout to me, Chris, really, I talked about this on the morning after report, is just the fact that essentially Tech flipped the script on what you and I described as so dangerous for Tech last week, and that was going to be dominating time of possession by the Longhorns, really establishing some drives and keeping your defense out there possibly for an extended period of time, because maybe your offense would have some trouble sustaining drives or converting third downs, whatever it might look like, avoiding turnovers, as we mentioned as well, winning the turnover margin. And somehow, some way, Tech actually was the team that did those things, like a difference of 40 plays you dominate time of possession. I mean, I really couldn't believe the way in which they won. I mean, there was always a chance. It's only a touchdown spread about on your home field. But I think I would have really believed that if you told me Tech was going to be a winner, that you would have had to have had some huge defensive plays, like points scored by the defense and probably some points scored maybe special teams wise. I don't know if I would have ever just cooked up a recipe like this and have thought, Tech could really pull it off. But, man, they checked all those boxes. I really thought Texas might be checking and making it a tough day for Tech, and that is big time to see that kind of change now 4 weeks into the season, because I don't know if they're checking those boxes, obviously, as they begin 2022, right?
100 plays to 60. I mean, that's, as you mentioned, that is massive. And I think you got their defense tired. I think they were on the field, and there was a couple of those big defensive tackles late in the game. I think they felt like coming into the game that if they could get any kind of rhythm and start with a little tempo, that those big, giant 350-pound guys on the interior of Texas defensive line could get gassed. And sure enough, I think that we saw some of those guys, just basically lay down and have to come out of the game and all that. But how they did it was very impressive. You got the tight ends involved. Hello, Baylor Cup. I called him Cooper Cup in the pregame show on the radio, and I'm like, man, he played a lot like Cooper Cup.
Good company.
Even though he's about a foot taller. Welcome to Texas Tech Baylor Cup for sure.
Well, and the load was lighter statistically for Tharp, but huge impact when we saw him pop up as well. Love seeing the tight ends on the board that way.
Yeah, and you were without one of your best blocking your best blocking tight end, and Henry Teeter, and you could tell that affected the run game some and all that. But it was just I was happy for because before the game started, Zach Kitley walked up to me and he said, got a text from Cliff this morning, and he goes, fired me up because he said, this is Donovan's day. Every quarterback has one day where it just kind of clicks and it starts to happen for you, and the game starts to slow down. And I don't know if over the weekend versus Texas was it, but boy, it looked pretty good to me.
Yeah, it did. Not putting your team in a bad spot
right.
From a turnover standpoint, and just avoiding so many of those things that seem to plague him to begin this season. And Chris, I just have to continue to remind myself that was that start 7 or 8 for Donovan Smith now?
I think you're right. I think it was 5 last year, and I guess it's been 3 this, so that would be 8. Yeah, that's right. So he hadn't even had a full season in, and this is, he's learning, but that was a big one that he can put that feather in his cap over the weekend.
I think I saw someone saying that in 6 or 7 of those, he's a touchdown or more underdog, and he's gone 3-3 or whatever that looked like in those scenarios, which is, pretty tough as far as the guy being on the underdog side of things and either making it competitive or pulling out some wins. And, man, just guts galore. Print the shirts, man, because I think that's Donovan Smith. And not only Donovan Smith, but obviously there are several outstanding individual efforts in this ball game, and we'll get to some more of those coming up. We'll be talking clearly about guys like Smith, but a guy like Trey Wolf high on the list, as well as some guys on that defensive side of the football we'll get to before the end of the episode. But Chris, I saw a comment from one of our viewers on YouTube that pointed to the fourth down attitude. He referenced the name of Mike Leach, but he also referenced that era's attitude. And I don't even know if we ever had that prolific of a fourth down day under the Pirate. But the attitude, I think he's hitting the nail on the head with, and I think most fans want to see more of it. And you're probably going to get bit by it here or there, but I think a lot of Tech fans would appreciate a return to that type of approach.
Yeah, because my brain was not really comprehending going for it on fourth down on your own end of the field in that first drive out of halftime. I'm like, okay, there's a whole half to play, and you almost felt like you're forcing it. You don't get it. And then Texas comes right back and does the same thing. Now, granted, it was on their end of the field, and you get a stop, so it's no worse for the wearer. But then you think about that 4th and goal, and you're thinking, okay, you could have taken 3 there, and just you had them in your back pocket. But here, and talking to Zach coming off the field, we were doing radio stuff, and I was just down there in the middle of that melee. I said 6 for 8 on 4th downs, man, and he just said analytics, baby. Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah.
I mean, really loud. But here's what I wonder. We have now seen in back-to-back weeks with this team, when they're down 2 possessions, how they're going to operate in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you're going to see this same behavior if you're up 2 scores, okay? I think, but we've clearly seen the playbook in the second half. When you're down multiple scores, it's foot on the gas. You're going to have to stop us 4 times. Really, I don't know at what yard line you have to be at on your own end of the field before the book says, hey, man, okay, at this point, don't do it. Like, go ahead and send Austin McNamara out there. But I was just, I was like, holy, because it's very unorthodox. And that's the thing. Talked to a coaching buddy late Saturday night about it. And he said, that's the thing about that kind of deal, is that if you're going to do it, you have to be unwavering and commit to it, because you can't just be selective with it and do it some of the time, or then the numbers just don't work. You got to commit to it. And boy, goodness, that they sure have.
And I got to tell Coach Kitley, I know he's young, but that's a rookie move, screaming analytics there. That's when you got to say it's all gut. It's all instinct. It's our genius that's leading us to this success. But maybe he's just too humble of a guy to go down that road. That's one individual that really had a great day, and I'm sure has enjoyed that huge win for his team, his offense being a big, big part of it. Wasn't a day where they had to survive the offense, again, like maybe I was describing earlier, you might have thought would have to be done if they were going to win, but a day where really they helped propel their team to a win. And we'll talk about some of those individuals on that side of the football, as well as the other phases of the game that certainly stood out, and some primary takeaways coming up ahead on this episode of Locked On Texas Tech. But first, it's back to our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. Get over to linkedinjobs.com right now and create a free job post in minutes. It's the widest ranging network where you're reaching out to the world and potentially beyond. The largest professional network of over 810 million people. Lizard people, alien people, we don't know. But whoever's out there looking for employment, you can connect with them. You might even say you're going to link up on LinkedIn. There you go at linkedinjobs.com to add your job, and then the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring, so your network can help you find the right people to hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. Chris, you got a business, RedRaidersports.com, and once upon a time, you guys hired me. I bet you weren't using LinkedIn Jobs at that time. There have been a few questions.
I thought I was hiring a reptile, man, a lizard people, right? A slee stack or something way back in the way back in the day. Wasn't that from? Oh, geez, I'm trying to remember what show that was. Land of the Lost. How about that?
I was thinking Old Testament, but maybe Land of the Lost as well. I'm not quite sure, but yeah,
way back.
Avoid costly mistakes like that. Yes. I mean, it almost sunk them. It's a miracle that they're still hanging around at RedRaidersports.com by using LinkedIn Jobs. Head on over right now for help finding the candidates you want to talk to faster. Every week, nearly 40 million job seekers are visiting LinkedIn. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege, linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thanks for joining us on Locked On Texas Tech, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. New episodes each weekday on YouTube. Subscribe there if you haven't already, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Appreciate you for dialing us up once again, and dialing up as clutch of a day as you can imagine, really for any kicker, but particularly within this stretch to start the season. And given the context of that job in general, entering the season, Chris, Trey Wolff, one of those individuals that stood out to me the most. You saw him just going bananas on the field afterwards, after converting the final kick. Had 3 big ones there in the second half and into overtime, to say the least. Saw some great photos on the aforementioned RedRaidersports.com of him just wiling out with all his Red Raider pals. And man, I couldn't feel happier for a guy like that because, like I just said, I mean, we were mentioning a second name when we were even talking about that job and whose it was coming into the year. And I would say he has swiftly kept it.
Well, he's such a unique story because he sat here for 2 years after, he was a Lou Groza Award Watch finalist, and 2 years ago in that season came in as the kicker, and you thought, well, you're in good shape here, and then it wasn't happening, and there was a few misses early on that season, and he kind of would eventually get replaced by Jonathan Garibay, and then we know that Garibay was the guy last year. And so he has to try to compete for the job this year. They bring somebody in from Houston Baptist and Gino Garcia, and just couldn't be happier for Trey, man. He went and got married, and he's just older and mature. And but so many guys would have bailed, man. So many guys would have cruised in this transfer portal era, and I thought he was going to be robbed from his kind of moment because he hit a monster kick, which probably should have been the game winner, and then he had to come back and do it again. I mean, so I was real happy that he got to have his moment because he's really calm and chill, and it was just fun to watch all those emotions just pour out because he'll never forget that ever. And you have a kicker, man. Like, there's no doubt he's had 2 clutch kicks in 2 games that you had to have them, and they were from distance now, both in the 45, 47-yard range, and he's aced them. So hadn't had to do it on the road yet, but he's so far mastered Jones AT&T Stadium, that's for sure.
He might get some shots on the road coming up the next couple of weeks. But yeah, the third, the fourth, and then into overtime, 27-45 and 20 yards he went. Chris, I'm thinking about the overtime kick. Do you think that this may be common knowledge, I don't know. I once thought facade and facade were 2 different words. Does the kicker like to push it or pull it? What if it can't be dead center? What's the preferable angle?
I used to think Mirage was, you said it, Mirage, So yeah, we're there. Yeah, we're there. I'm like,
thank you for sharing.
What's a Mirage? Well, that short kick that he has to make, that actually is I guarantee you, is as short as it is, that actually makes for a tougher kick than you'd realize. Because there is no give there at all. Like, you've got to hit it right, and you've got to. I think he kind of had to push that in, but he almost kind of, like, I don't know. I want to say, like, hooked it. It wasn't in the middle of the uprights. It was closer to his left, and so. But it was no doubter and all that. And I wondered. See, that's the thing, is on that third down. I think if Donovan doesn't slip, we're not having the same conversation about Trey Wolff, because you walk him off, and it would have been back-to-back walk-off touchdowns in overtime by Donovan Smith, which would have been an unbelievable story too. But my point is, you don't have time to use a play up and say, hey, where do you want it? You want it on this hash mark? You want it on this hash mark? We can center it, whatever we want to do. That wasn't available to you, so he's just got to go in there and hit it pure. And boy, if you watch some of those replays, it's almost way too quiet in there. I mean, way too like you're standing over a 5-foot putt trying to win the Masters or something. And I'm like, somebody make some kind of noise, man. This
Happy Gilmore, like, can we get a little noise here?
Yeah, that's right. It's like
Trey needs to start cranking the crowd up.
It was way too quiet, but I just happy for him. And yeah, you mentioned that he was full horns down in the post-game melee, and I'm all about it, man. That's a blast.
It looked like a tough angle, man. I mean,
I agree.
Kind of deceiving, and I don't know what a kicker prefers. Get at us in the YouTube comments, kickers of the Locked On Texas Tech community. But I don't know.
Well, Casey, I will tell you, if you can watch any kind of replay there's 2 guys I want you to focus the most on. Okay. There's, and one of them is just kind of funny, and the other one is like, oh yeah, this is good stuff here. But Jackson Knotts, his deep snapper, nobody was more excited in the stadium than his deep snapper. Okay, number 30, Jackson Knotts, who's been placed on scholarship and all that, just jumping around crazy and all that. But go watch Caleb Rogers. Caleb Rogers gets himself right in front of a UT guy, a defensive lineman, and they are face to face, and he's telling him right in his face. And it was very spirited. I mean, their face masks are bumping.
Very spirited, yeah.
Yeah, and as Caleb Rogers told me last week, I guess, yeah, my grandmother tells me I'm a social butterfly. But the guy just talks. He's a talker, man. He's going to talk, and so he's going to talk when he wins, which is what he did. He's going to talk when he loses, which I've seen that too. But yeah, he's right in the face. And I thought the actual whatever D lineman it was, once the camera moves away, I don't know what happened, but the Texas kid, he showed some restraint there because Caleb Rogers was all up in his grill.
How's your mother? Happy Halloween.
That's right.
Chris, what's the next name we should be mentioning? Offensively, defensively, special teams, where are you going?
I think this is a no-brainer here. It's Krishan Merriweather, because we're not having this conversation if he doesn't make that play on Bijan Robinson and force that fumble. I mean, because it's a first career fumble for what is one of the best backs that you're going to see certainly all season, and one of the best backs I think you've seen in a couple of years. The guy's just a freak. And I thought Merriweather, Joey told me in postgame, Coach McGuire did, that on Friday night, he said, I looked at some of these senior types, these guys that are our better players. And he goes, I called them together and I was like, guys, you guys are going to have to start making some plays in games like this for us to win games, period. Like, that's just how it works. I'm challenging you to do it. It's the whole big-time players make big-time plays, all that kind of stuff.
Right. And
so there was that speech and all that, and you forget about it. Well, waiting in the locker room when Joey kind of got in there and everything kind of calmed down, Krishan Merriweather, who doesn't say a whole lot, walked up to him and was like, Coach, big-time players make big-time plays, man. And just monstrous, because you have no momentum at that point. It shouldn't have gone to overtime. It does, and we hadn't even gotten going, and the ball's on the ground, and then you're thinking, all you got to do is just put points on the board, and you're going to walk this thing off, and everybody's going to have a party, and that's what happened. But kudos to Krishan, man. That was monster hit.
Just unbelievable. Yeah, and it was not poked out, punched out, or stripped. It was impact related, right. Collision related, right? I mean, there's a difference, and he put a shaking on that man's body, shivering his timbers, and I just hope that he can be consoled by his many mustard millions. So wish the best for Bijan. I mean, it's just that storyline is unbelievable, Chris. I mean, thinking about that, what that means within the context of his career, like you said, within Robinson's career, as far as putting ball on the ground, and just that's it's hard to call. I don't like calling any play the biggest play of the game because they all lead to something, but that's like top 5 on the short list or something. Huge. I mean, it's amazing just to see that those two players collide as good as it gets in the Big 12, linebacker, running back meeting up, and thankfully the guy in red won out in that matchup. We've already mentioned Donovan Smith, and we don't have to get back into the entire picture when it comes to Donovan Smith, but I think I do look at some of those, well, 2 of those fourth downs in particular. It took all 11 to convert those, but it also took some special things from Donovan Smith, Chris, that you can't really define. You're not going to coach, and that's why you don't want to see him really reined in necessarily or handcuffed, and obviously you didn't with 56 attempts on Saturday against Texas. But those fourth down plays, just the mettle there and kind of the instinct that we saw on display, man, that's really exciting about what the future could hold for that guy. Again, going back to thinking he's made less than 10 starts in his career.
Yeah, that first touchdown run, I thought when he just kind of lowered his head, that's you don't want to, you can't major in that. You put him in harm's way. But right. I think that was great for him because he just was like, screw it, man. I'm wrestling this thing in. I'm going to initiate contact. I'm barreling my way in. And that's what I think maybe we wanted to see on the 4th and 1 against NC State, stuff like that, where you just he gets a bit of a run start and you just kind of, you use that frame of his. And I thought that was good for him, maybe to get hit like that too, kind of get him going a little bit. But I thought he played a really solid, clean game, and it was just kind of fun to watch. And again, it didn't all work. I think we keep forgetting just how young that group is on that side of the ball. There is nobody there that you just know is going to bail you out, because even as good as the running backs are, they kind of switch roles here every Saturday, and you're not real sure what you're going to get. Yeah. And it's before we go too much further, and we're talking about individual guys, man, I think Miles Price deserves a lot of credit too. Oh, yeah. He's one of one in that, not just that he wears his jersey number, but he's really like the twitchiest, the kind of this quick guy that, you really don't have anybody else like that on your offense where he can cause a matchup problem. And you kind of fed it to him quite a bit, manufactured some touches for him against Texas, and I think he answered the bell. And I wish you had like 3 guys like that, just because he gets tired, man. I mean, he got popped a couple times. One time he had to come out of the game, and I thought, uh-oh. I mean, I hope he's okay.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah, he was fine. One time he got helicoptered. He caught it up in the air, and they just like carried him like 3 more yards before he landed. I mean, it was like he took a beating, man. But he's got a big old smile, and he's a playmaker. But 13 catches, I think, for him, and almost 100 yards. Yeah, he was a machine.
Well, think about that. 2 yards less than 100 on 13. I mean, he's grinding out every freaking yard he's getting, and
getting hit.
I'm trying to remember what the number was. 56 after the catch, man. 56 yards after the catch. The dude was unbelievable, and had a big punt return too, right? I think
he did. I mean, help get you in field position, and I just thought, yeah. I mean, I mentioned that to you a week ago, Casey, when we were talking, when he had him on the coach's show, and he was like, I don't want to be a part of a group that didn't beat these guys. We should have got it done when I was a freshman, and it didn't happen. I just don't want to, be a part of a program or a team that didn't get it done against these guys. And man, he was partly responsible for making sure that didn't happen. So I just
loved it.
Yeah, it was good stuff. And you just realize, and it's worth mentioning too, man, like Xavier Worthy not being there in the second half for Texas, that hurt them. They don't have some of those dudes are really, really good. And when you take them out of the equation, it alters it. I mean, only 7 completions for Hudson Card in the second half. And again, we're all have conveniently forgotten that you're playing with a backup quarterback here in Donovan Smith, and that wasn't the guy that won the job. And you had Weston Wright back, but Loic Fungi's playing dinged up. You were without Henry Teeter. I mean, so some of these matchups kind of get created by some of the guys that are in there or out of there. And I thought, you caught some breaks on Saturday, especially with Worthy not playing in the second half.
Man, the lines of scrimmage brawls, and I can't mention anybody really as an individual because I thought they were just admirable on both sides, man. Offensive line, I thought, continued to show some progress, and certainly defensively. When you're getting some pressure with 3 guys up front, I mean, I'm like, who's put on the Tech uniforms? Because that's usually the other team I see doing that so often, frustratingly. I mean, that's like diminishing the will of an opponent whenever you can make some things like that happen. Much less later on when you're actually bringing, additional pressure and things like that. But the line of scrimmage, I thought deserved applauding really on both sides. Chris, Tyree Wilson continues to fill up the stat sheet. You're just like adding another 0 or something like that to his NFL paycheck every Saturday. I think he's just amazing to watch. And your secondary is, they're dogs on a bone. There's no question about that. And playing almost every snap, missing, I don't know, less than 5, less than 3, a couple of those guys, but Dunlap and Williams and Pearson and Muddy Waters and you love the gut showed by everybody in all aspects. And that's why you got to win over a team like Texas, whose roster will out-talent you as far as stars go in every way, shape, or form and by country miles. So that's part of why it's so fun to be a Tech fan in this instance, where you really know you had to earn what you got, and you had to do it down to the very final second and then some, right?
Yeah, and Adrian Fry did not play, and I think that it shows that you've got some depth back there because he's a good player for you, and he hasn't played in the last couple of weeks, and I think that you haven't seen a drop off, but that's the thing that I think Joey really deserves a lot of credit for, and I think that Joey was really smart and tipped his cap to Sonny Cumbie a year ago at this time, because Sonny started this, like the care factor, I think is the way Joey phrased it, and the willingness to like play hard, because that's what this program is always going to have to be, man. They're never going to have as much talent as a lot of teams they go up against, but if they play really hard and kind of that blue collar mentality, and I've been happy to see that they've gotten a couple of results, and really you got a much closer game than it should have been in Raleigh, because you just simply played really hard and you just weren't going to give in. But it's nice to see them get a few results here like they did versus Houston and versus Texas, because now those kids will continue to believe and buy in, because too often it's like you preach that message, you keep asking. It's like there's no payoff, there's no reward for it. But it's going to be much easier for Joey and his staff now to kind of keep demanding it and asking for it, because they see what it's like, and you end up in the middle of a melee on the field after a home game in overtime. If you play really hard, it'll work out for you.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'd say shout out to Sir Roderick Thompson as well. I'd love to get a balanced day from both of those backs where they're both productive in the same way. But as for now, it's good enough with one of them carrying the load more so and kind of switching off. And I think it does show from week to week, Chris, that these guys are ready when their number's called, because it may not be to some great degree for whatever reason. And then 7 days later, you may be in the mix like Thompson was. It wasn't a huge day, but over 4 yards per carry, got into the end zone. That was on 17 touches there. So I thought you had enough there to make an impact and make the defense at least account for that portion of it, right?
And I thought the first play when Tech had the ball in overtime, he got tackled and he slid and he's right at my feet. I was right down there on that end of the field, but I thought he's about to walk into the end zone. I mean, he was I think they got knocked out about the 3-yard line or something, but yeah, I mean, that was a huge run at the time, because you didn't have to worry, what if you take a sack right there or an incomplete pass, and then you're like, okay, man, this may end up being a long field goal, but you're first and goal before you even know it. And that was a huge run by Sir Roderick. But yeah, and I just think we forget there's not any NFL guys on that side of the ball just yet. We don't know who those guys are from a skill standpoint. So there's no bread and butter there like Eric Ezukama to bail you out, that you just know he's going to be good enough, he's going to be open, he's going to make the play. You're using everybody. Right. I mean, Trey Cleveland's big 35-yard catch down the sideline was his only catch of the game. And it's just, and Jerome Bradley didn't really have any kind of noticeable impact on this game, but you got enough from your tight ends and your backs, and a big play like that. You had, I think, 4 catches for J.J. Sparkman too, but it was a all hands on deck type deal, man. But it was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, Brooks had 16 touches himself and some really tough yards. Had a few good runs, just not a big rushing total, but caught a few balls also. So it was, just like you said, an all hands on deck kind of day, which it has to be whenever you're trying to topple somebody like the University of Texas. Coming up before we are done on this episode of Locked On Texas Tech, we will ask the question as to whether or not the quarterback conversation is now on the shelf. And of course, with another home game gone by, you know what it is.
I like to ride my horse and shoot my gun.
The vaunted and internationally known now, I've heard, Locked On Texas Tech Equine Grading Scale. What was it looking like for Centennial Champion and the crew another time around? We've got some things to discuss again, I feel like. Coming up next on Locked On Texas Tech. But first, our friend Armin Williams at Schooley Mitchell. If your business had a body, would it be soggy around the midsection? Would you have like the inner tube going on? Want to cut a few pounds, possibly become a little bit more efficient? Armin Williams is the man with the plan. Schooley Mitchell is North America's #1 cost reduction company, Chris. And if you're asking yourself what your business could do with some extra wiggle room, find out today at savewitharmin.com. And as we love to point out, and business owners love to find out, no upfront costs when you get the ball rolling.
I know my man Armin had his horns down over the weekend for sure. Yeah, I bet he was enjoying that one. But yeah, man, all these different categories, you're trying to just, save some money, and you get into some deal, and there's probably a way to bundle services, but all those different terms that we hear. But Armin can take a look at that, dive in for you. It doesn't cost you anything. Let him do all the work. He'll save you money. And if he saves you money, then, that's how he makes his money. And you get to split those costs. So it's a really good setup. It doesn't cost you anything. And yeah, he's just looking to help Red Raiders out there that have Red Raider owned businesses.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So if you're paying too much for your business services, Schooley Mitchell and our friend Armin Williams can save you money without sacrificing service, save time without increasing your payroll. And on average, essential business services are reduced by 28%. And like Chris said, there's all kinds of stuff that you may not even be considering the ability or the opportunity to trim up, but you could if you'll check in with our friend Armin Williams at Schooley Mitchell. Again, the website is savewitharmin.com. Go there to get your free upfront analysis and find out if there are going to be savings with Armin Williams and Schoolie Mitchell at savewitharmin.com.
Savewitharmin.com.
Savewitharmin.com. Thanks for joining us on Locked On Texas Tech, your team every day on the Locked On Podcast Network. Subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get your podcast. Trying to cook right on past that 1,500 number. We're not far away, so tell family, friends, foes, anyone else you might knows. Chris, have you spread it all throughout the family tree? Because I don't know if I have any branches left. I've been shaking all the limbs.
Yeah. I think most of my family is they've hit the subscribe button, and I've greatly appreciated it. Yeah, so we're watching that number. We're getting close to 1,500. Be good when we get there, and then we'll aim for 2,000.
Yeah, that's right. So please subscribe on YouTube and all the burner accounts, everything. Like the stuff you don't want people to know about, whatever. It doesn't matter. Just subscribe on YouTube with everything you got signed up there or anywhere you get your podcast. Chris, I'm surprised to be in this spot Monday asking this question. And maybe it's a no-brainer, but is quarterback conversation over at least for 7 days? Or how long does it last as far as the peace around Donovan Smith? Because it's kind of been a constant the last few weeks.
I don't think it's over. I mean, I sat next to Tyler, just during halftime, Tyler Shuck, and he's got credit to him for the attitude that he's got. And I said, man, you're in there studying the other day. And he's like, yes, sir, I sure am. I mean, he very matter of fact, like where else would I be kind of thing. Right. And I just, Donovan will kind of decide this deal. I mean, one way or the other. I mean, if you go beat, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, and you've got that bye week and West Virginia's sitting here, I mean, Donovan's probably going to still be your quarterback. And maybe even if he wins one of those games, but if it doesn't look good, or you feel like, and who's to say exactly when Tyler will be cleared and deemed ready to go play too. But I'm not ready to put anything to bed yet on that. I just think that because here we are, last week it was not good, and now this week we're back. I'm just not. So I don't think that neither is as good as we all think, and neither was as bad as we all think. So I'm not ready to kind of like just keep Tyler on ice if he is indeed healthy, whenever that is. And again, there's a lot to play out between now and then, and we don't know when then is. That's the other key. But
right.
Largely Donovan because Donovan had to re-earn his job last week, point blank. I mean, they split the reps, and Barron, I think lost out to Donovan last week. I mean, that was made very clear.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because you actually go the Shuck route, and I was thinking more the Morton route. Like, is that conversation over? Because I thought it was real last week, but then I thought, well, maybe I just bought too much into the fan aspect of it being real. But no, there was something in the air.
Yeah, no, I think I don't think Barron is just quite there yet. I think had that game, against Texas gone the way of, if he'd have thrown an interception early in the game, talking about Donovan, I don't think there's any kind of change made. If he throws a second one and it's really on him kind of thing, I think that's where there would have been heavy consideration to making that change, even though Donovan was, just because you just simply, we talked about this till we're blue in the face, you just can't keep turning the ball over at the end. No. I mean, you just cannot do it. Figure out a way to move the ball without doing that, or let your punter come out there and help you out on occasion, whatever it may be. But yeah, I guess I didn't think about it the way you were asking. I thought you were asking about, the Shuck and all that, but I don't think that right now there's any sort of, thought that Barron would come in and take over. I think, Donovan would have to play really, really poorly. And it's not a knock. The problem with Barron right now is that when he looks his best is in live scrimmages or when he comes into a game. He that hasn't translated onto the practice field and being really consistent. But he's got a good attitude, and he's got a smile.
Syndrome. Stephen Sheffield syndrome.
Kind of. And it's just hard for a coach to when you don't see it in the middle of the week, it's really hard for a coach. Not that he's looked terrible or anything. I'm not suggesting that. He just, when the lights are on, that's when he's at his best. And so it's just hard for a coach to know exactly what he's going to get from you when you haven't looked you haven't practiced as good as the other guy and all that stuff. But yeah, it's an interesting, it's funny when you say that, because we're all over the place when we're talking about all these different quarterbacks, and there's lots of conversations taking place.
What a wild situation for coaches to be in so early on in a tenure, to have these options, choices. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what to compare it to, but just trying to survive navigating it. And Donovan Smith played a big part in doing that successfully this most recent time out. And, when I say maybe he's got peace for 7 days as far as that conversation goes, I'm only partly joking because, you got to see some things strung together as far as success.
Correct.
So it's still maybe kind of a week by week or quarter by quarter status, whatever it might look like. And yeah, just to harp on it again, because we haven't enough, right? Specifically, can't fill up the turnover column. You just can't do it. So there's all kinds of things that you can do, ups and downs, et cetera. But the turnover column every time out is not going to be survivable if you're continuing to get busy there. So hope to see more, because you got to root for the guy. I think we're rooting for anybody that would be good for Texas Tech, and he's easy to root for, that being Donovan Smith, because of we know the process that he has endured, but still very much a work in progress. Somewhat similar, you might say, to the great Centennial Champion and the rise of the Texas Tech football entrance. How did it shake out this time around?
I like to ride my horse and shoot my gun.
Still riders and horses. Why did I say riders? I went like Philadelphian on you. Or Minnesota. I don't know. Still no riders.
That was much more Minnesota.
Riders or horses put down. So that's good. Just everybody living, having a good time. And Centennial Champion, I thought, like, admirable, I guess, in whatever capacity he was allowed to be. But the entrance, Chris, was still kind of interesting. I actually was surprised that there was something else to note as far as this moment at the Jones in our equine grading scale.
So I believe what you're suggesting here is Centennial Champion just ran out by himself with no team behind him.
Is
that kind of what you saw?
Is he a little cocky? Doesn't know that it's a team effort and it's just still kind of about him right now.
So what I think through, I don't know why or how, and I don't pretend to know all the timing on how this is supposed to go. I get sent a timeline sheet every week, so because we want to know exactly when kickoff is going to be, and you have to time out the pregame show and the national anthem and all that stuff around commercials. But I think Texas was actually supposed to come out sooner, and they stayed in the tunnel, and so Tech's entrance comes out, and then the team didn't, the Tech team didn't come out. It was all, and because I walked by and somebody goes, "What was that?" I guess Texas didn't want to get booed, or I don't know what was going on. I don't know, but yeah, the horse just ended up, I think, running down the field with no team behind them. But that's what I gathered. Did you see something different?
Well, no, I didn't. And
okay, all right.
I have seen that there was some miscommunication as far as timing or just some general lateness. I don't know who was tardy or who got the pink slip, but there's always a lot to take in as far as the equine grading scale. So when you apply a letter grade to Centennial Champion, as I learned last week, you also have to ask about the decorum, the outright behavior of the Centennial Champion pony posse on the sideline. Was there a collision with Chris Level or anything to report on that front?
Absolutely not. We steered clear from. I stayed away from them. The pony posse, right? This is what you're talking about, right? I had multiple conversations with Sam Jackson, I believe.
Okay,
and he's in charge of said program, and he said we can't bring the horse out while these speakers are going. So I think they because those speakers, I'm telling you, man. I mean, they will rattle the inside of your brain. In fact, if I go stand over there in front of them, I'm going to lose a portion of my hearing more than I already have. I mean,
maybe your lunch.
Yeah, there's zero doubt that's happening. Yeah. But they don't want to put that horse anywhere near those things. But I think it was a pretty clean night. I'm gonna say we're in the A category this week, man.
Really?
I think A minus, because I don't think Centennial Champion running out and then not having the team behind him was any. There was no wrongdoing there at all. I think he went when he was supposed to. There's some gamesmanship maybe with these. I don't know what was going on here, but I think
they're tricking our horse up. Is that what you're saying?
That's right.
Oh, you feel good? I guess Texas I am. Fooling an animal?
Yeah, I guess I am.
I bet Texas is the kind of pet owner that like fakes the ball just over and over. They get a huge kick out of the dog looking, and they didn't know where it is. You punks. What are you doing fooling an animal, a precious animal like Centennial Champion? I got to disagree, though, Chris. I think you're grading a little soft there. Kind of like a substitute teacher, like Richard Belding's brother. Can't remember. What was his name?
Oh,
Rod?
yeah, with the long hair that he went to go surfing.
Rod?
Yeah, he was
like
he was like a surfer fisherman guy.
You're gonna go river rafting and let them down again. So they had to go with old Dick.
Yes.
But I kind of feel like maybe I'll elevate them to the B range.
Okay, all right.
But my brother, Centennial Champion.
Happy medium. How about a B+?
Run without the team, guy. You can't leave without the team.
You have
the whole reason we're there.
Yeah,
you got one job. So still a work in progress, but maybe we are making some progress, and I'm just happier to hear that we're on good terms now with week 4 in the rear view with the Centennial Champion Pony Posse. I think everybody will be relieved by that across the Locked On Texas Tech audience. Chris, we're going to enjoy – we don't have to abide by the 24-hour rule here on Locked On Texas Tech, so we're going to enjoy this one this week, obviously, like Joey McGuire and his Red Raiders will turn the page within 24 hours. But I'm going to enjoy this one. I hope all Tech fans will, because you don't get many of them. And it puts any coach, any head coach in special company if you're able to beat the Longhorns within the history of Red Raider football. So congratulations to Joey McGuire. I love seeing the photos of his family on the sideline when the kick was getting set up and going through. I don't know who was taking those shots, but I think they're on our Twitter page, actually, at Locked On Tech, if you haven't seen them. But, man, you can just feel the emotion bleeding through the photo there. So, obviously, a lot of that goes into a win like what you got against the University of Texas, and set yourself up for some big opportunity, man. Not surprising you didn't get in the top 25, because nothing like this could mean Tech is a good team. It can only mean, oh, the Longhorns are really down this year, losing to the little podunk Red Raiders, right? So still everything out there to earn. And, man, I'll tell you what, it's a big challenge, but I love what you got coming up on the road back-to-back weeks. And what should amount to, I think, Chris, 5 consecutive top 25 opponents by the time you hit the bye week.
I think you're right. And you were sort of talking about home games, and, we don't have, another home game for another month, basically. You've got 2 road games and a bye week before West Virginia is back here. So it's going to be a while before you're back in the Jones. But, 2 incredibly difficult road trips coming up, and some wild results over the weekend in the league. And we'll get to those, I guess, as the week goes along. But, man, it should be fun. And I'll say this, man. The thing that I was very impressed about Joey is that it would have been really easy to get caught up in the emotion. I know that he was, but he really just went out of his way to make it clear, hey, man, beating these guys is great, but being 1-0 in the Big 12 is really what this is all about. He tried to keep it in perspective. You got 8 more conference games to go, and he's trying to keep an eye on the prize and all that stuff. But because it's been a while since you've had a winning record in the league around here. I mean, it's been a minute, and so I appreciated him. Now, I thoroughly enjoyed beating those guys. There's nobody I'd love to beat more than that bunch at all in anything. It doesn't matter, and you've made a habit of that in the last academic year, I guess, and in your sports. But man, yeah, good for that whole crew over there, and good for the fan base, man. I hope they enjoy the heck out of it and enjoy the heck out of it for weeks and weeks to come.
Yeah, and since everything's running through Lubbock now, I can't wait to see what we get. Does that mean we finally get like a Papa Dose? Joey McGuire might be the guy to pull it off.
Papacitos too, man. Bring them all. Papa's Burgers, Papa's Steakhouse. I've had them all, man. They're phenomenal. Yes.
All right. So Chris is all out. Full court press to get all the Papa's family out here to the LBK, because everything does now run through Lubbock. So glad to know it. And hopefully we're sustaining something interesting heading to Manhattan, Kansas, because you're going to have a big time challenge and coming up tomorrow. Go ahead.
And Calvin, next time I see you, man, I expect to see you kind of rocking that Nature Boy kind of sport coat that he had at the
with
Jones.
The chain.
Did you see that? Could you pull that off?
And the ice.
Oh man, that was a lot, man. Yeah, that was.
That's Ric Flair and Ric Flair alone. I think that can make that look good.
Yeah. Okay.
We can't lose with the Nate on our side, man.
No doubt, man.
Let's bring him back for West Virginia. Yeah, you're about to be a road warrior, dude. So I wish you the best of luck. I mean, good grief. You got to go to Stillwater on one of these trips. So make sure you gotten all your shots, proper vaccinations, because, wow, you got to head back to Lubbock on the other side of that. But, man, can't wait to see what's coming up for a team that does have momentum. Joey Mo is back, baby, and we're not talking off-season Mo. It's all about that in-season Mo now with 2 top 25 wins over his resume and both against in-state opponents. So 187 million couldn't get Chris Del Conte and UT a win in little old Lubbock, but I'm sure you'll do fine in the SEC. So it should be a lot of fun. A lot of fun to watch. Hey, you guys make sure that after Locked On Texas Tech, you make Locked On Big 12 your second listen with Josh Neighbors. They may be even mopping up a few Longhorn tears on Locked On Big 12 this week. I don't know, but check it out on YouTube or anywhere you get your podcasts. We'll see you on the other side for another edition. And as I was mentioning a moment ago, K-State, the next opponent. And tomorrow I will dive into my regret in discussing just how this would be classic K-State. Yet I didn't believe enough to pick it. So that was a lot of fun. We'll recap some of the picks and what went down in a wild weekend in the Big 12, man. Underdog bonanza in the Big 12 conference over the weekend. So we'll have fun with that, man. And until then, Chris, enjoyed it as always, and we'll see you for the next one.
Sounds good, man. Keep hope alive, people.
You bet. And subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get your podcast. We'll see you tomorrow back on the Locked On Podcast Network on Locked On Texas Tech.